Welcome back to the Amatelicateas podcast. Joining me now, you know him. If you're a sports fan and you don't know him, you could be living under a rock at this point. But he is the reason why I chose this great profession in sports broadcasting and sports talk podcast. He is world-renowned contributor and commentator on ESPN's First Take, along with the host of his world-renowned radio program, Mad Dog Unleashed, on SiriusXM Mad Dog Sports Radio Channel 82, the one and only Christopher Mad Dog Russo.
That's a mouthful there, Jai. Good afternoon. How are you today, pal? Things good?
To use your verbiage, I'm flying. Good to find
I like that. Flying, that's fine. I've used that for a long time, flying. Yes, you've always been flying. You look like you're in happy spirits. Get yourself out of school and maybe start a broadcasting career. That wouldn't be the worst thing, right?
No, not at all. And any single time you get to talk to, you know how I feel about you, hero, mentor, an adoptive paisan uncle of mine. Talking to you, nothing else, doggy.
No, I'm happy. Don't make me out to be any more than I am a talk show host, Jai. I'm not Jesus Christ, but it is great to be with you. I know you've made a lot of progress, and it's good to be back. I was on a couple years ago, so yes. You and I go scream against, bang some ideas back and forth again. So it's good to do it. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I got some topics I want to give you in terms of sports, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a few questions. If I were to tell you, and the last time I talked to you on the platform of this show was in March of 2021, prior to that baseball season. And if I had told you back then, you'd be the First Take star that you are now, you'd have a series of ESPN bet commercials, you'd host a Patriot show on the Vice Network, you walk the red carpet with Timothy Chalamet in London, and your celebrity within the sports media world has grown to the extent that it has. If I had told you that all of that would happen to you in the previous 4 years since we last talked, what would you have said?
I would have said you're crazy. Renaissance obviously began with Stephen A., so I would not have thought a connection with the First Take people. That began there, 3 years ago with the Bonds and Clemens and the Hall of Fame discussion when Steve asked me to come on and give him a couple of segments on it. I would have said you're crazy. No way. The Chalamet thing was out of nowhere. The Vice thing was kind of out of nowhere. I just did the Vice thing. I did a panel, and next thing you know, they said, would you mind hosting the show? I hosted the show. Chalamet, I love the movie. That was organic. So that is certainly something that you can't predict. And First Take, who would have thought that a portion of the audience who hadn't heard me there, Jai, on the radio or Mike and the Mad Dog or any of the things that I've done in this medium for 30, 40 years, that all of a sudden those folks on First Take would see me and realize, wow, this guy is something that's fresh and something different. And I never would have predicted that. Matter of fact, I came down the elevator at the Super Bowl on the Friday, and I'm getting on the elevator, and who do I see? I see a family coming out of the elevator. The guy's a big fan, huge, couldn't believe it. He watches me every Wednesday. His wife's with him, pictures, the whole bit. It's Julian Love's father and mother. Julian Love, of course, the running back at Notre Dame. So, who would have thought that you would have had those two in that situation, watching me with Stephen A. on First Take on a week-to-week basis. So I have been brought to a different audience, a younger audience, more of an African-American audience, a college kid audience, college students, where it's a little different than the radio audience, which is obviously a little older, a little more old-fashioned. I have that audience is there. So it brought me to a different audience, and I never would have thought that would have been the case. And I have Stephen A. to thank for that. The Vice thing, again, was just one of those things that kind of happened. The Chalamet, I love the movie. That really is the main reason there. But again, I screamed about not being invited to the premiere. I didn't do it on the radio. I did it on what? First Take.
First Take.
And he saw it. He's not listening necessarily to it. He saw it on the TV. So you throw that into the mix. A lot of this has to do with First Take, whether it's and remember, I signed a new radio deal last summer, partly because of First Take. So it's the ESPN power, which is the most important ingredient in the last 3-4 years here.
Do you, with all of that's gone on, not just in the last 4 years, but obviously your career spanning 40. Is there a feeling of vindication with this renaissance that you are going through right now? Like, I remember you told me when you were on the first time back in COVID, August of 2020, how you got ambushed by a girl you were dating in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, I did say that story. Yep.
Yes, you did. So do you ever, when you're screaming and yelling, doing the mad abouts, or when you're walking the streets and you get recognized and people want to ask for your picture, your autograph, whatever, does it ever hit you in here or behind closed doors? There's like a feeling of, yeah, like I'm the baddest
No,
MF.
I do not look at it that way at all.
That
That is not something that I will do. You can't take anything for granted. This is not a revenge tour. I've been very lucky here that I've been able to hang in here for so long in a very difficult medium, to last this long and still have people wanting to hear what I have to say after, as you said, 40-something years, 1983. It's 2025. I never would have predicted that. But I never sit there and take bows to myself either. Once this, and behind closed doors, I just don't do that. I never saw. I always sign an autograph. I mean, there are occasional times where there's an obligation to the picture taking and the autograph things, and there's an obligation to it that it's the last thing you want to do, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. So there's that aspect of it. But I mean, overall. You're blessed that been so fortunate that you've been able to hang in there with all these different mediums for such a long period of time. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think not taking yourself so seriously, the mispronunciation of words leads to a charming element, which I think people like. Knowledge. I think the historical references people get a kick out of, because I'm always bringing up Lombardi or, Joe DiMaggio, whatever that case might be. Most young sports guys today, whether radio or TV, can't do that. So I kind of fit that void. And I think with the with media today, where the accent is so much on the current athlete and on the current person, having an old throwback is needed. And I've been sort of put in that role. And that's something you can't take lightly. You go in there every day, you do the best you can. But to answer your original thought, it's not like I pinch myself occasionally, but I never sit there and say, I told everybody how good I don't look at it that way. You go to work every day, you do as good a show as you possibly can do, and then you go to bed and read books at night. I mean, that's essentially what and follow Northern Arizona University basketball with Tim Russo, or follow ESPN radio there in West Palm with Colin Russo. Try to help my daughter get herself situated. Go out to Loyola Marymount to see the other son. Take care of the missus. So but I do not sit there and get all puffed up and get proud of myself because, wow, look at me now at 65 years of age. I'm doing all this work. Who could have predicted it? I don't say that. Go on every day, do the best job you can do.
Gotcha. Now, like you said, 65. Will you be 65 or are you 65 right now?
No, I'll be 66 in October. 65 now.
66, October 18th. How much longer do you see yourself doing this?
Well, I mean, if you noticed, I know you did, but I don't know if your audience did. The MLB Network, I took a step back from there this year. I had done that 11 years, that high heat show on a daily basis.
Why did they cancel it?
I think a lot of it had to do with finances. I know it's an expensive show to put together. You got to hire, you got the two people there, Alana Rizzo and myself. You got to hire the production staff. You got to hire technical apparatus. It's an expensive show. And I think in all forms of media, they're looking to streamline. They want to put the games on as much as they can. Think of spring training. They can put quick pitch on there. I think there's a combination of a couple things. Now, I think I could have still stayed with the network in another capacity if I really wanted to. And it's not a question of not wanting to. I just thought, you know what? I did this for 11 years. Let's take a little blow here, get off the daily grind, whether it's once a week, twice a week with appearances. Let's get off the daily grind of doing the baseball and just do the radio and do the first take once a week. So that was really a situation where, I think it was mutually agreed upon that maybe First Take and run its that high heat had run its course, and let's take a little step back. But as far as the length, how long I'm going to do this, I mean, I sort of got a couple years to go on a radio contract. I mean, I thrive on work, so I don't want to sit there and tell you, well, at the age of 68, I'm going to quit, or at 70, I'm going to quit, because who knows how you're going to feel at 70. You got to find something to do. Remember, I saw Mike, my old partner, Francesa, retire too early. And, I think he probably would tell you that he made a mistake when he retired the first time at FAN, and then he came back and did another year and a half. And I want to be careful that when I do decide I've had enough, that I don't jump back in, full bore 3 months later. You want to make sure, that you get all that you want to say out of the way before you take a little blow. But I will try to take a little step back occasionally, more vacation time with this last radio contract. No MLB network at the moment. So I'm trying to at least to bridge it a little bit.
Is this your last serious contract? Do you know that for certain?
That's a good question. It's not up for 2.5 years. So I would be what? That's up. I'd be about 68. So, I mean, would I never sign again if I don't know. That's a good question. I probably would still want to do it. I would think, Jay. I would think I'd still want to talk every day and get my opinion out there as far as the world of sports is concerned, but I can't guarantee it. When you get to be 65, 66 in media, it's almost a little bit like day by day. It is. You got to be careful. You can't overstay your can't overstay it. You got to realize, you know what? Give somebody else a chance. So am I going to do this when I'm 80? I hope not.
Al Michaels is still working at 80.
That's true. It's only one game a week, but you can make an argument that Al shouldn't be. Costas stepped down. I mean, for the most part, you can make an argument. The problem with it is a lot of the great broadcasters, they want to get off the wheel and step down and lessen their workload, but they don't want to quit. They don't want nothing to do. So you see a lot of guys step down and then they got to cherry pick and find out, do a CNN or do this and do that. And so it becomes a little tricky. You're sort of retired, you're sort of not retired. And I think that is a word of caution for somebody who thinks he'll quit his main job and pick up little things along the way and do those things, because it's not as meaningful. You don't have as much impact. You're on radio every day for 3 hours. It's got more impact than doing CNN twice a week for 5 minutes. Right. And, the people on that level, they want to have impact. So you got to keep that in mind. Got to be careful. When you say goodbye, you got to be careful.
Gotcha. Going to First Take right quick. And I've been meaning to ask you this within the confines of the comfort of my own show and not really put you on the spot on your own because you got sponsors and everything else. Why was JJ Redick such a pain in the ass to you when he was on First Take?
At times he was, yeah. We got better as we went along, but yeah, those first couple months he was tough.
Why was he so just? Excuse my. Why was he such a douchebag?
He didn't know me. JJ's from Roanoke, Virginia. He didn't grow up listening to sports talk. I mean, JJ didn't know me. That's got something to do with it. I think he took offense. He's a data analytical guy where he goes by the data, like a baseball front office person with, swinging for home runs and, rather have you strike out than a double play. And the logic of hitting a 3-run homer compared to the, getting out the, the 1-out single, get 3 runs with 1 swing instead of 1 run. He's a data-oriented guy too. I'm not as much wrapped up in data. He played, I didn't. That always plays a factor there. I think he looks at the athlete today who's so much bigger, better, and stronger in his eyes than the athlete of 30, 40 years ago. And so as a result, and I kind of represent the old days, and I think that bothered him as well. Maybe part of it was a challenge. Part of it's his personality. There was some tough stretches there with JJ where you kind of felt a little bit, me at least, a little uncomfortable. Boy, oh boy, JJ's in a grumpy mood today, or at least he appears to be. How am I going to handle this? And there was, I would say probably a couple of months of that, 2.5 months of that. I think at the end of the day, when I saw him there, and this is 2 years ago, not last year, because last year he did the games. See, last year he was on the games, so he wasn't on the air that much with us on a daily basis. 2 years ago, he wasn't doing the games. He wasn't on the number one team. The number one team was Jackson and Van Gundy, so he wasn't as much oriented with the games as he was last year, as he was 2 years ago, and now he's coaching, so it's past. But there was a point there a couple of years ago where it got a little tricky, got a little difficult. There was a little, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? A little discomfort sitting in that chair. I think at the end of the day, I think he got to appreciate me a little more. We got into that big fight. Well, not fight, but we got into that big fight with the Draymond Green thing, which, was a bad look for me. And I think that maybe he felt bad about it. Whatever the case might be. I think for the most part, when he was not on, he got better by the summer of 2 years ago. So that would be the 23. We were fine, but there was a 4 or 5 month period there where JJ, I don't think he respected me as much as you would like. I think he thought I was a guy who didn't know anything about basketball, and he didn't respect me. I think once he got to see me, know me a little bit, he realized that I was a little sharper than he originally thought.
Okay. Was there any, like, during the breaks with that not awkwardness, but with that element of contention?
Yeah, there was some of that.
Where, like,
there was some icy tension during the breaks. Absolutely. He wasn't in on every segment because we didn't do basketball every segment, but sometimes JJ would go back into the green room, and there was that. Now, listen, Stephen A. had big fights with Jay Williams. JJ had Stephen A. had some issues with other hosts. But my thing was a little bit more of a disrespect aspect of it. With the Stephen A., Jay Williams, and everything else, it wasn't. It was just a disagreement about a particular topic. With JJ, I don't think he necessarily took me too seriously, and that makes it a little bit more uncomfortable. But I always knew I had Stephen's back. Stephen had my back. I knew that. And I think Stephen A. knows who I would appeal to, and JJ doesn't know that. He didn't grow up listening to. He's not you, Jai. 20 years ago, all right? He didn't grow up listening to sports talk. Again, he went to Duke. He was there for the 4 years. He didn't know who Chris Russo was. And so, I'm not for everybody. In a lot of ways, you could make an argument that I am an acquired taste. And I think JJ began to appreciate it after a period of time.
Gotcha. From one coach to another, why in the world, and this one being Toy Lavello, the coach, why? And when you said it at the time, I said to myself, listening in my basement and my little podunk townhouse that I was renting out a few Octobers ago, I said, now, why in the hell did he go on the air and say this? Why did you say that you would retire if the Diamondbacks came back?
I do those things a lot. I don't know what the specific reason was, why it hit me that day to say it. Maybe I wanted to antagonize the Diamondback fan in a situation like that, get him annoyed. They had gotten that series to 2-2 and lost game 5. And then they won those last 2 games. I really did think there was no way they were going to win. Lavello handled it well. And Lavello and I are very good friends. And, not friends, but, we have a good working relationship. And I think that he knew how to play it up to get his team motivated. And that was amazing, the amount of juice that got. I was surprised. That was just a perfect storm. I mean, I get involved in a lot of these perfect storms where whatever the reason I say something picks up on it, and either, my prediction is dead wrong or I happen to hit something right. The positive would be the Chalamet thing, hit it right on the head. The negative would be the Diamondback thing. I thought they were going to, definitely lose game 6 to these Phillies, and they turned out and win the 2 games in a row. And then I went out to Arizona. I gave baseball a little juice with that, and I know baseball felt the same way. That was an honest take. I embellished it, but that was an honest take. I thought there was no way Arizona would win those last 2 games at the Citizens Bank Ballpark. I thought they were, they won the game. They lost. They won the first 2 games of that series 2-0 down. They won the first 2 in Arizona. They lose game 5, and I thought they would definitely lose game 6 or 7. I got a little nervous after game 6. I still thought the Phillies would figure out a way to win game 7. But that was a huge story for a long period of time. Saying I retire is just to add a little zest to it. I don't think I never thought of the possibility, Jai, because I never thought, in fact, they'd win the 2 games. So I never thought, what happens if they win the 2 games? I probably didn't think about it until the 5th inning of game 7. Oh my God, like one of those. I didn't even think about it too much in game 6. So from that standpoint, I guess I wish I could take that retiring thing back, but it worked out for the best. I got so much juice out of it. I know some people said, he's got no credibility. He didn't quit. I know the Arizona fans said that, but you could say that he should have had the guts to walk away. But who in their right mind thought I was going to walk away if the Diamondbacks won the 2? I mean, I got contracts. You just can't leave.
No, I understand. I get it, but the reason why, and I couldn't believe that you said it, because it's like, dog, how, for lack of a better word, stupid this generation is, especially the people that are on the internet. They see or they hear one thing and then they run with it. They take it out of context. They don't think critically, and they don't, peel the onion back. So how.
I guess you're right. I should have realized the audience today would realize it's a gag and it does not that serious. And I guess I was taken aback that a lot of the audience thought I was serious, and then I didn't quit. I mean, who in their right mind would think that I'd quit because Arizona lost those 2 games, because they won 2 games in the World Series? What person would say, hold on now, he's going to quit? He's on every day. He does the first take. He's got this, he's got that. He's not going to quit. He's just saying that. And I'm amazed that people actually took me so seriously. And whether it's the younger generation, whether it's people who wanted to nail me for, not sticking up to what I originally said, I think there's a little part of that too. But that was I was surprised by the reaction there. I was surprised that got so much juice, and it did. That got a lot of juice for a couple of days. Stern picked up on it. Novello and the Diamondback clubhouse picked up on it. Baseball wanted me to go to Arizona, which I did. That got a lot of juice, that one. A lot of juice.
Stern wanted you to walk down.
That I was never going to do. That I never,
You imagine?
My wife would divorce me. I mean, I can't walk down Fifth Avenue in a bikini. I mean, come on. And, Howard just wanted to get involved in it because it became a big thing. And Howard, he didn't care about the Diamondbacks. What the hell did he care about the Diamondbacks for? He didn't watch the games. He wasn't that interested. He wanted to get into a radio deal with it. And so he put me in a tricky spot. Yeah, I got in trouble for that. That whole thing was a little overwhelming there for about 3-4 days.
I can imagine. I've been wanting to find out. Now, maybe it's because the First Take money hadn't started piling in yet. You know how bad my football team has been historically. They've played in 3 Super Bowls. They didn't play in 1 in my lifetime until 2021. They have this sensational playoff run. They come back down 21-3 against the big bad Kansas City Chiefs on the road. They win in overtime. They go to the Super Bowl. Why didn't the world needs to know? And more importantly, I need to know, because the way that they run things, they might not make it back. Why didn't you send me to Super Bowl 56, Mr. Russo?
Why didn't I?
Yes.
That's a good question. You didn't go on that. What was my reasoning at the time? What did I say? I had to get 2 tickets, and you had to get out to L.A. What was the reasoning for the time? No, we got your Ravens. We've gotten your Ravens tickets on occasion.
You did. It was ironically earlier that season.
Oh, we got it the same season?
Yeah, 2021 Jamar Chase.
I got Eric tickets for the first Eagles Super Bowl, and I wasn't able to get them this time. I don't know why. I guess I should have maybe I thought that Burrow was going to, be in a situation where he'd be in multiple Super Bowls and there would be other times. Maybe I thought LA, maybe I thought they'd be, those tickets are expensive, and I couldn't let you pay for them. So I don't know why. As it turns out, you're better off you didn't go. You would have been crushed with the loss, and it would have taken you 7 hours to get out of the stadium. So you want to go to one of these Super Bowls when you win, not when you lose. But yes, I know you wanted to go in a worse way, and I did not get you tickets for that. That's a good point. I remember one Super Bowl, some way the Tennessee St. Louis won in whatever year that was, 99 maybe?
99 season,
Yep.
January.
There was a big ice storm in Atlanta, and I ended up somehow with 15, 16 tickets. Can you imagine that? I had 16 tickets, and I gave them all away. 16 freaking tickets. I had 4. I took 4, and I gave 10 or 12 away. So I can get them. Maybe the next time, if they ever get back, we'll figure out a way to get you to the game. Maybe.
All right, let's hope, and let's transition.
Let's get there first. Yes, let's get there.
Yes,
although I do think Burrow is going to win a championship one day. I really do.
He is, but if they keep this moron of a head coach around, it's not going to happen. I don't know.
Well, he's not going. First off, the if is throw the if out. He's staying. So I know you keep on, wishing that he's not getting fired. The owner does not fire any head coaches. Marvin Lewis is there for a million years. He is not getting fired. So your best approach should be live with it, figure out how to get off to a better start, instead of pounding your head against the wall thinking if I scream loud enough to the heavens, they're going to fire the head coach. Mike Brown is not firing Zac Taylor. It's not happening.
But do you see where my frustration lies with him being a bad coach? Ill-prepared in the month of September. They're an average at best football team within the division. They barely won any home games this past year. They were winless at home for like about a month and a half. It's just I can't take it. We have a generational quarterback, and this guy continues to practice insanity time and time again, whether it's abandoning the run, whether it's, he's calling screen passes on 4th and 2.
I would think you would have been happier. I would have think you would have liked the idea that the Bengals played all the way to week 18. No. They were in the mix. They were dead in the water. They bounced back. They, won games at the end of the year. That last game against Pittsburgh meant something when they had to win that Saturday night. They could have finished 6-11. They finished over 500. Not as good as you would like, but I would think you would at least give him credit. The idea the team didn't quit on him, and they played over 500 football, and they were a very dangerous team. Now, they should have been that way all year. You're right. But they did not. I would look at it the positive way instead of the negative way. They finished the season the right way and properly, and made, obviously, a couple teams win late in the year to get in the or they would have gotten to the postseason. Not last week. They had a chance. They win that Saturday night game. They had a couple of things break, including Denver against Kansas City on Sunday. They could have made the playoffs. I would think you would have liked the way the team finished and used that as a catapult for next year.
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's this between you and me. You are Mr. Glass. Now you portray the angry old guy, get off my lawn, but at your core, you're a very optimistic, glass half full type of person. This is not a bad thing. It's a charming and endearing quality about you that I like. Me, I am not that way. I am realistic. I am Mr. Glass half empty. This team, the last 2 years, has been an absolute disaster and a disgrace. You have the best quarterback.
9-8 into the week 18 is not a disaster and not a disgrace. The Jets are a disaster. The Giants are a disgrace. Not the 2024 Bengals. That's not fair. When you finish over 500 in a good division and dig yourself out of a bad hole and have a chance in the last week of the season, that is not a disgrace. That's not fair.
When you have a Triple Crown winner at wide receiver and a guy that leads the league in sacks,
you got to have a defense.
Dog,
you got to have a defense.
Oh, the defense.
They have no defense. You got to be fair. They don't have they're paying a quarterback $300 million. The receivers are making a fortune. There's not a lot of money left for that defense. You got to be fair.
But can the coaches show up and actually?
I agree. Their coaching has been a little lacking, but you can't fire. You wanted to fire Brandon Hyde 3,000 times. You can't fire these managers and coaches. Jai, you cannot fire these managers and coaches every time you have a 3-game losing streak. You can't do it. You'll never be happy. You can't do it.
I will
say this. Zac Taylor, make sure he get off to a good start next year. I will say that. I'll give you that.
He starts season 0-2. The screaming will continue. I have no tolerance. You can't waste talent. You just can't. Especially when they didn't have the hardest schedule in the world. They had a damn near last place schedule. I mean, you take a look. They played outside of the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Ravens. They didn't play Buffalo. They didn't play Detroit. They played Washington, but nobody knew they were going to be as great as a team as they ended up being this year. They did not have a murderer's row type of a schedule. They didn't. And they sat up there and they fought it around.
The coach is not getting fired. Get past it. The coach is not getting fired. Get past it. You're right. The schedule wasn't that difficult, and they underachieved, but the coach is not getting fired.
Brandon Hyde, can he win a playoff game?
Well, I mean, that was a bad series against Kansas City, but that's really more about the front office. Can you get him some? I mean, last year, they lost their bullpen. They had major issues with their bullpen. The trades they made didn't quite work out. Burns kind of cooled off a little bit near the end. That was a bad series to Kansas City. No argument. But Hyde's done you can't argue with Hyde. He's done a good job. Now, listen, he's 0-5 in the playoffs, but he's done a good job. He's done a good job. They won 91 games last year, made the playoffs. The year before that, they won 100 and some odd games and won the division. They lost to the world champions 2 years ago in Texas. You got to live. Hyde needs to win a playoff game. He needs to make that next step. But you cannot argue with his job that he's done these first 3 years with the team. You can't argue it. You can't argue it. He's handled those young players well. They play hard for him. They won 90 games last year, which is a good season. The year before, they had a great season. They got a little flat in the playoffs. I'll be the first to admit. They didn't hit a lot. They got a little – Aldi Rutschman stinks. They got a little flat. But you got to give him a break. He gets a bigger break than the other one gets, than Taylor.
They both get no breaks. They lost that series, Doggy, not because of pitching. Burns pitched his ass off.
Yeah, they didn't hit.
They can't hit. And when they have like 90% of their 5 playoff games, more than half of them, dog, they've had in their building. And they can't hit, flat, dead-headed, devoid of a pulse.
Yeah, they're not firing a manager. I mean, why don't you kill the players instead of killing the manager? Get on your team.
I did. I screamed and yelled in this seat for 45 minutes the day after they got bounced by Kansas City.
It's not Hyde's fault they couldn't hit. That's not Hyde's fault.
It's about your approach. And if they keep on getting up to the plate, treating it like it's home run derby, let me get up to the plate.
Every team does that. Every team does that. That's the way the game is played.
And the thing that drove me crazy is that they stayed in that slump for the majority of the summer. I did a rant on Twitter that actually blew up my engagement numbers, but I did a whole rant when they lost the game to the Colorado Rockies in late August, early September. They were bad against bad National League teams. It's just they weren't good, and they weren't consistent all summer long.
Have the Orioles given you 2 good seasons in a row? They have. That's it. Nothing else to say. Have they given you 2 good baseball seasons in a row where they played in October? They've done that. What else do you want? You like to win some playoff games? They've given you 2 good baseball seasons in a row. Now, it's not 10, and they haven't had postseason success. 100% right. But have they kept you engaged, and they didn't do this for years, did they kept you engaged 2 baseball seasons in a row? The answer is yes. That's all. You got to give the manager credit for that.
Buck Showalter's teams did that with less.
And they didn't win in the playoffs either. They got swept by Kansas City. Take it easy. Lost to the Yankees. Lost to Toronto with the home run by Encarnacion.
Hold on. In 2012, they beat the back-to-back pennant champion Rangers in the playoff game. They took the New York Yankees to the 5th game of the ALDS in 2012. And in 2014, they ambushed 3 former AL Cy Young Award winners, 2 of whom, Mr. Russo, are going to the Hall of Fame. Don't compare it.
Okay.
They went to an ALCS.
I don't know what you want, Jay. I don't know what you want me to say. You want me to say fire Hyde? They're not doing it. So why don't you got to get off this? You all young people. My son does the same thing. He wants to fire everybody in Jacksonville. These owners are not going to pay these guys off and fire them because you, as a fan, don't like that he didn't pitch hit in the 8th inning against Kansas City in Game 2 of the postseason. He is not going to do that. So you got to understand that every solution isn't getting rid of the manager in the office. That's not every solution. I grant you that the Orioles need to do better in the postseason. I grant you that. But they have a small payroll. It's not like they got a $300 million payroll. He's not Aaron Boone. They don't have a $300 million payroll, so you got to keep that in mind. All right, a couple more before I go, because I got to run. Give me one more.
First of all, can you leave my guy Kevin Harlan alone? He is one of the best play-by-play broadcasters within this industry, and you of all people sit here talk about he screams.
Are you the same guy who doesn't like Joe Buck?
I tell you.
Cool. Did you know ABC got the Super Bowl because they hired Buck and Aikman?
Yes. And
somebody must feel he's pretty good.
Well, and to your point, I have come around on Buck. Joe Buck, he's one. I've done a complete 180.
Oh, have you? You didn't tell me that. Okay.
And to God, Joe Buck is one of the best broadcasters in the game. Now, granted, he sounds a lot better in 2025 than he did in, say, 2008. But I've come around to Joe Buck. He is a great broadcaster.
So you like Harlan, and I don't like him because he screams too much.
Yeah, but it's funny to hear it coming from you, somebody that literally has made a living for 40 years yelling on television. Your nickname is Mad Dog, for God's sakes, and you get on Kevin Harlan because he yells too much.
Well, he's doing a play-by-play. He's not doing a talk show. It's a little different. He's the play-by-play guy. I don't mind him being excited, but you got to pick your spots. And he tries to be overly excited on a Sacramento-Denver game in January. And I think I think you have to, as a play-by-play guy, have the excitement level match the game that you're broadcasting, and Harlan doesn't do that. He gets excited when there's no reason to get excited, and I know the TNT people probably love him for it because he shows incredible quote-unquote passion. That, to me, is a little fake. That's the problem I have with him. And I know you love him. But that's the problem I have with him.
Kevin Harlan is you if you followed your original play-by-play broadcaster path and became a play-by-play broadcaster. You two are one and the same. That's why I love you both. You're more alike than you are different. Regardless if you want to acknowledge that or not, you're more alike than you are different. I'm just saying.
Different roles. All right, give me one more before you go. Go ahead. Give me another one.
The greatest musical artist of all time is.
Well, you want me to say? What do you want to say? James Brown? What do you want me to say in your eyes?
I swear to God, if you say Bob Dylan,
no, I'm not going.
The
Beatles.
Really?
You know how many albums they sold?
Not band, musical artist, singular. Not band, singular artist.
You want me to say Prince because you love Prince?
I actually love Michael Jackson more than I love Prince.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You can't.
Michael Jackson didn't write any of his own songs, so I mean, it's.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he wrote.
So I mean, those songs. I don't think he wrote those songs. Did he write all those songs?
Yes, he
did. I don't even know. You tell me.
He had Rod Temperton write a few of them as well. Thriller being one of them. Yes, Michael Jackson was a music. He didn't play any instruments.
I didn't know he wrote all the songs.
He was a musical savant. And I tell you something right now. If you think for 1 second that I would go to a Joni Mitchell concert or a Bob Dylan concert or see that godforsaken Complete Unknown movie before I go to a Beyonce concert, here's a musical movie for you, Mr. Historian. Michael Jackson's got a movie coming out, biopic coming out this October. I think it's October, whatever the first Friday in October is of this year, it's coming out. You go see that. That, my friend, is what you would call music, talent, genius, greatness. Instead of Bob Dylan stringing on the guitar, singing off key, putting America and everybody else and their grandmama to sleep. Come on. We're talking Michael Jackson. Who did he get his influence from? James Brown.
I got to find out if he wrote all his own songs.
Cool.
I got to find that out. I wasn't sure about that. If you say so, I trust you, but I'll find that out. Listen, Dylan, 1962 New York is not for you. We understand. Him playing at coffee houses and playing Newport Arts Festival, the folk, that's not for Jai Shields. No. I understand that. I get that. So it's different musics for different tastes. Beyonce is not for me. Prince not necessarily for me. And you have to accept that. My people that I love are people that you're not going to love, and vice versa. You're a 21-year-old young 22. Kid. How old now?
22. I was born in 02. I'm the same age as Colin. How do you not know this? By
22 years of age, and I'm 65. So I'm basically old enough to be your grandfather. So we are going to have different tastes musically. You have to accept my tastes, and I have to accept your tastes. And you need to see. Chalamet is going to win the Oscar. He's going to win the Oscar. All right, I got to run. I got a show in a half hour. I love you. Keep him posted. You're my buddy.
Okay. You got it.